Hello there, this is Cindy at cindybdesigns.com. Thank you for joining me today. These are our sample cards that I made before these cards that we are making today. There's differences between all of them, and I will let you know what they are as I go ahead and recreate these. All of these are from the Happy Hibiscus bundle, which is part of our online exclusives. The majority of products that we're using today are from online exclusives, except for a couple of things like the So Sincere stamp set, Countryside Corners. And for our first two cards, I really stuck to the bundle contents. I brought in some twine and some ribbon, but other than that, everything came out of the Happy Hibiscus. This one here, I kind of did my own thing and only use the embossing folder that comes along with it and some ink blending. So there are a few fun techniques in here as well. So I brought in some iridescent foil gems. Again, that petal pink, pretty in pink ribbon. We're going to be doing some ink splatter today as well. We have that garden green along with the whisper white twine. You see my blending brushes there and that I want to say 2 3/8 circle punch. That is our Whisper White Craft Refill. And that's a splatter technique I'm going to use. And our ink colors today are going to be Pretty in Pink, Soft Seafoam, Garden Green, Petunia Pop, and Blackberry Bliss. And that is what the Happy Hibiscus bundle looks like. You get two great die cuts for the sentiments. It cuts out all the flowers. Good variety between line art and solid images there, along with that really deep embossing folder. Elements of Text, that is also another online exclusive. It has that script in it, which I love, along with the So Sincere and Countryside Corners. Now for our first card, we have a side folding A2 card base that is soft seafoam, and then I brought in a panel of basic white that we're going to mat the Pretty in Pink cardstock onto. I'm grabbing the largest image, and they're all hooked together in this bundle from Happy Hibiscus. And I'm just going to do some tone-on-tone stamping here of just putting that onto the Pretty in Pink cardstock. It's a great way to customize and kind of make your own pattern paper if you don't have anything that you're stashed that goes with your brain. Just take some stamps and ink and paper and make it happen. The online exclusives that we're using today, they were released a couple months ago in November, and on February 4th, we have new online exclusives coming out, lots of sweet collections, and I like all of them, but I really like this one. And I know I say that every time. So I will be featuring those for you in the upcoming weeks. I'm not too worried about getting images in the middle because we're going to cover that with our embossed image panel. These cards are pretty flat, so right now I'm just laying some seal on the back of the Pretty in Pink cardstock. I do have tight margins there of 1/8 of an inch, and I'm going to keep these cards pretty flat though too at the same time, where only the sentiment and the flowers are going to be on Stampin' Dimensionals. So I'm getting everything lined up there and adhered down. And my dog just had her lunch and she's belching big time in the background. If you hear that, I apologize. I am grabbing the second largest Country Corners die, and I'm going to cut that out using the Stampin' Cut and Emboss machine. And then I'm going to run that through the Happy Hibiscus embossing folder. Now I left that little bit at the bottom there of the Whisper White cardstock because I'm going to use that as a scrap page to do our sentiment for the next card. So hold on to all that white that you're kind of getting into and chopping up and basically use it all up. This is where I pull in that Pretty in Pink ribbon there and some household scotch tape. And I'm going to lay that down more so towards like the beginning of the bottom third of that panel there. And I'm going around all those sides with our seal and line that up top to bottom, left to right. And now I'm going to pull in well, I guess put down the flowers, but pull in the sentiment along with two of the small leaves. And though we need two of the small leaves, and those are going to get stamped on soft seafoam cardstock along with a same color ink, tone on tone. But first, we are stamping the sentiment onto basic white cardstock, and this time I am using Blackberry Bliss to do the sentiment rather than the pretty in pink like I did when I was putting these cards together. I just felt like I needed that sentiment to stand out more, and it was just getting a little bit too monochromatic for me, and I like to have that pop with what I do. That ink pad is really really dry, and so I have to ink it up a few times just to, well, have the crispness that I like to have on my sentiments. And when I make a blunder like that, I'm not going to edit it out anymore because it's just such a drag, and I'm human. So when I use a color like that, I like to heat set it because I mean they are fussy colors and I don't want my ink to smear. You can also put clear embossing powder over that because our water ink, it'll set just fine using that, and guaranteed no smearing. I'm going to pull in our little circle from the Happy Hibiscus dies, run that through the Stampin' Cut emboss machine, and there we have our sentiment. I took this one off screen to die cut because you see me do that a lot before, and my desk space is limited, which I'm really working on, by the way. And I think now I'm going to flip that over and no, no, no. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do anyway. You put your Stampin' Dimensionals on the top of that in the bottom of the circle to get that on. So right now I'm bringing in that we just need a scrap piece of soft seafoam and the small leaf, and I'm going to do some tone on tone stamping there with soft seafoam ink, and you can see the difference there. It shows up if you want to use Versamark instead. That is a more subtle image, but still not subtle image, but more subtle ink. It'll still show up. And if you really want to brighten that image there, again, use clear embossing powder. I didn't have to at all because it shows up perfectly. So here I'm just going to get everything cut out and run through the Stampin' Cut Emboss machine. You want two of those leaves, and then in your die cuts, you have like two of those standalone flowers, the large ones and the small ones, two of each. For our card, we need two of the large ones and then one of the small ones. And if you're following along with me, grab some glue dots right now. I'm going to run that through. And the only things, the sentiment and the flower and the leaves, the flowers are adhered with mini glue dots. And then that whole bundle there with the leaves was laid down with Stampin' Dimensionals on top of that ribbon, and it does work out. And then the same thing with the sentiment, and then I scatter a few baubles around, and that card is done. Now see those two different sizes of Stampin' Dimensionals I have? We don't have those in the catalog. They come from Paper Pumpkin, and neither one of them are the size of mini glue dots that we have in the annual catalog, which it sounds kind of corny. That's like another reason why I love Paper Pumpkin, because I get all of these different sizes of adhesives down to Stampin' Dimensionals, like I said on my video last week of the Paper Pumpkin alternatives. So that's where I'm laying down, I slowed it down, my dimensionals on the back of that circle there. And I think I already told you how I got everything else down. And as far as Paper Pumpkin goes, I have everybody drawn through the end of January. And I'm going to go back to those YouTube descriptions, underneath the video, and contact everybody there that I need to. But that's already done. So go ahead and definitely please check that. And that is going to be it for our first card. The leaves were kind of saggy a little bit, and that is why I decided I needed some more stability. And I grabbed a full-size Stampin' Dimensional, cut it in half, and I'm just going to go ahead and pop that underneath there real quick. And you saw me scatter the iridescent dots. That is our first card there. Now for our second card, I've already done the basics of adhering down the mats to the card base because we did that the first time around, and that was our sample card on the left. I'm going to change the colors of the flowers and the sentiments, and that is that piece of scrap paper from our first card where I just basically shaved the side off of it and kept that to die cut my label out. So this time around we have a basic beige card base. Our mat's going to be garden green, and then the embossed image panel on top of that is going to be soft seafoam. Our sentiment is going down in Blackberry Bliss. Now, whereas our first card had a lot of die cutting to it, this card has a lot of stamping to it, and our third one will have a lot of ink blending to it, and that's along the lines of mixed media. Got the sentiment down, chopped the ends off there a little bit so I can fit more on the die cutting machine than normal. And that is going to be framed with a label from Happy Hibiscus. So right now, the first thing I'm doing, and I go backwards than a lot of people when we have inlaid images like that, especially with one is attached and the other ones are freestanding. I have a base of, or a piece of basic white cardstock there, and I'm going to ink up the line art joined images from Happy Hibiscus with Blackberry Bliss ink, and I'm using that Chucky tool to get it down. And remember, this pad is really, really dry, and I'm having to ink it up once or twice, but this time I'm only doing it one time because what I'm going to do now is grab another door because the Stamparatus came with two of them. Unfortunately, that's been discontinued. I've talked about that a few videos ago, but I'm holding on to it. And now I'm going to be taking the solid images of the hibiscus flowers and I'm popping them down right in the middle, and I'm going to line all of them up. And that's the beauty of clear stamps, is that you can see right through it. And I do end up lining these up pretty well, pretty dead on. The way we design our stamps, I mean, 99% of the time you're going to get them dead on in there, but every now and then you're going to have this overhang, and it just does nothing but enhance the design even more. And it's also actually designed that way to maybe fill in the lines a little bit, especially along the the solid images of that hibiscus when we get them all cut out, and you go back to the blog and see the still pictures of them. And that went down in Petunia Pop, which, by the way, all that will be over there at cindybdesigns.com. There will be a link right underneath this description. They'll take you directly to that. So now that I got our Petunia Pop down, I brought back in the lid that had the large image stamp on it that covers all three of them. Inked that back up again with Blackberry Bliss. Got that down real well, and it turned out, I gotta admit, pretty great. So I got everything cleaned up there, and now we are going to work on our flowers. Not our flowers, but our leaves. So what I need here is a piece of garden green cardstock, the two line art leaves, and we have one large one and one small one. And we are going to do some tone on tone stamping like we did for our first card. Moving it over, going to ink that up again in garden green. And then we have that standalone die cut leaf right there. And I'm going to cut two of those out. And then, well, yeah, I did die cut our leaves out too. So this is where I kind of take my time and get everything down because I'm putting down the leaves and, well, actually all the leaves and the flowers with liquid adhesive. And the only thing that I'm going to put on Stampin' Dimensionals here is the sentiment. So I have like one thing going through my brain, and another coming out. If I had a do-over, I probably would have moved the leaves up just a little bit because I was getting kind of towards the bottom more so that was on the sample card. So I'm lining everything up and doing what I have to do. And I'm using that piece of low tack tape. And I know this is going really fast, but this is basically adhering, which bores me to do. So, I mean, it's got to bore you. Getting everything down there, especially those first three leaves. And then over on the right, I have one more stamped leaf that we're going to do. And I'm going to pop that under that bottom flower there, bring in my sentiment, make sure I have everything, going the way I want it to. Get that down, leave the low tack tape on, and see what I'm doing there. It's like you're going to have overhang upon overhang a little bit, but you still want to get those images adhere together with liquid adhesive. So, well, you want it to stay together pretty much, and yet line up the way that you want it to, covering the ugly portions as much as you can. And that's why you see me go back and forth and back and forth, make sure that I have everything lined up and going down the way that I wanted to. So I got all that down and I'm okay with it. Getting the sentiment down that was on Stampin' Dimensionals. And then now we have our two smaller leaves. I'm adhering them together with liquid adhesive on the top and then to tuck it underneath our sentiment there. That is another glue dot, and then another glue dot on top of the leaves that I can adhere our garden green twine bow to. And yeah, this time I knew not to do it on screen because we have one coming next up that I have to do on screen. So again, this is like another easy card. Lots of stamping, a lot of die cutting, and our first card was a lot of die cutting, but I think they're still really pretty and easy enough to do even for a beginner. Got it embellished and we are good. So for our third card, this one is my favorite. That is my sample card where the ombre and the ink blending's a little bit lighter, and what we did today, I still love it. If you don't have that stamp from the Elements of Text, go ahead and use that Stampin' Happy Hibiscus that I just pointed to. You'll still get the same like mixed media effect. And I'm using So Sincere for my sentiment because I really wanted something big there. So this time around, we have a Blackberry Bliss A2 top folding card base there. And I've already cut my design, not my designer series paper, my basic white regular cardstock down to size for the mat and ran that through the Happy Hibiscus embossing folder. And I have my purple and pink blending brushes there. So for the bottom color, we are going to be using Petunia Pop. And when I pull ink off the pad onto a blending brush, we all have a habit when we stamp with an image to go like right in the middle of the ink pad. So when I use my brushes, I do the top and the bottom and the sides. Just pull that ink from there because there's always more ink there than there is in the middle of the pad, right? So that's what I do. And like I said earlier, somehow it this just ended up darker because I mean it's never going to be the same ever. Got my bottom ombre inked up, and with the pretty in pink, you can tell my ink pad is dry. And I'm pulling from the bottom again of that. I'm going to end up pulling from the entire pad by the time this is done. And then I'm just blending, blending, blending up to, you know, pretty much halfway through. I don't make those colors meet all the way with this, but close enough where there's just like a little bit teeny tiny, I mean, barely, you can tell white space. And over on the blog, you're going to see still pictures and the differences or the difference between all these cards. What I decided to change, which was mainly I wanted the sentiments darker. So I got that all done. I'm happy with it. It's looking good. I am pulling in the Element of Text stamp there and the Blackberry Bliss ink pad. And this one, I'm just going to, no block, nothing like that. It's a cling mount, it's sticky on the back of it, so it's sticking to my fingers. And I'm just dipping it in that ink and randomly stamping that around there. I think that's like a really, really cool kind of mixed media effect. And this was, to me, the easiest card to do, for all these cards and actually less work. And for our sentiment, I am going back to basic Whisper White cardstock or basic white. I'm thinking Whisper White because we're going to splatter that on there later on. And I'm taking a sentiment from So Sincere and I'm going to stamp that down with Blackberry Ink Bliss 2. As I'm doing that, um, talk about the blending brushes. We have two sizes, a large and a small. The smalls for really, really small spaces or just something that you can do in more intricate detail. And I have both. Do I rinse them out after every use? No, I do not. 9 times out of 10, I'll grab a piece of scratch paper and just tap it all out and do what I have to do to kind of get it all clean again. If I do something like Blackberry Bliss for the first time, yes, I will rinse it out because the darker you go, you just got to kind of wing it for the most part. So I got that. Going to try to air dry that. I think no, I don't heat it, set it. Um, Cut off the excess a little bit, and that is going to be punched from our 2 3/8 punch. I'm going to put Stampin' Dimensionals at the top, like 2 at the top there and 2 at the bottom, because I do want to wrap some of our basic white or Whisper White twine around the center of the card there. And then this way the Stampin' Dimensionals won't mess with my twine. Next up, I am going to show you how I make my own splatter, and what I did, or what I just showed you on the right there. You want to grab your craft ink, okay? Just a little teeny, teeny, tiny dot. And to make that, well, my shimmer formula there that I used the spritzer to do, take like a Wink of Stella pen, empty out, yeah, skip intro, empty out about half of it into one of our spritzers, fill it up with water, shake it up really good, and that's why I used to water down the craft ink there, and just something random to splat my card out basically. It just gives that great texture, something different, and it's really that simple. We have like a full-size panel there, so what I'm trying to do now, or what I'm going to do, is with something like this, I like to grab, oh, I'm ahead of myself. First, we have to like wrap our twine around there. Little teeny tiny bit of seal. I'm going to loop that around twice, mess with it for a second there. But it all works out. Like I did with the ribbon on the first card, if you got it right on the back of one side, turn it over, line it up, and it's going to be perfect on the front. Household tape, got that down, cutting the excess off, and bringing in our card base there, looking, looking, looking. And I know when I have large panels like that now, I like to use our foam adhesive strips. It's better than, like 9 to, well, basically, 9 of the full-size Stampin' Dimensionals. Way more cost effective. Now, these are used for our shaker cards, and so they're a teensy tiny bit, a little bit higher, and we're talking microscopic, than what our Stampin' Dimensionals are. But it still works out. Less time to lay down. Wait, I mean, to me, better coverage when you have an image panel that you've embossed, inked up several times, splattered with water. The more you manipulate a piece of cardstock, it is only cardstock. You kind of want to support it more when you lay it down. So I'm playing all that off, and we are in the home stretch now. So I do hope that you enjoyed today's presentation and our cards with our online exclusives. I'm pulling the back off of our sentiment panel there. I'm going to line that up, do a bow on screen, which wasn't too hard this time around, to tell you the truth. But, please be sure to leave me a comment, hit like, and subscribe. Let me know what you want to see in the future. I know that for the rest of February, I have Paper Pumpkin exclusives, new, not Pumpkin exclusives, online exclusives, Paper Pumpkin alternatives, a couple other things. And, be sure to come back and visit me. So as we get all this together, this is where I am tying the bow. And this time I'm like kind of doing it not a little bit. Minimal embellishing. I mean, just that bow and a couple of the foil drops there. But I kept all these colors kind of coordinated for the set of three, but there's like amazing, if you change the colors out on this or sentiments or whatever, that's, I mean, gosh, I mean, everything you can do with that's great. So that is our first card there. That's our second card. And then we have the third one. And again, that is my favorite. Something I want to play around with a lot more. It really did not take all that long to do. And it's stunning. So I hope that you enjoyed everything. And I will see you again next week.